Lucy knelt on the floor of the engineering deck with her injured arm hanging limp at her side. The pain was incredible, a burning fire that ran from her shoulder to her fingertips. But she could hear the sounds of the station coming back to life around her. Systems hummed. Lights steadied. Somewhere above her, people were breathing who would have been dead without her. She had done it. But she was not finished yet. Professor Cole's voice came through her earpiece, urgent and worried. "Lucy, the medical bay has power again. The people there are safe. But the gravity generators still need a manual restart from the central core. Without it, the fluctuations will continue. The station cannot survive much longer like this." Lucy forced herself to stand. Her legs felt like water beneath her. Her vision blurred at the edges. She had pushed her body harder than ever before, and it was starting to fail her. "Tell me where to go," she said. "Lucy, you are injured. You have already done more than anyone could have asked. Tell me where to go." A long pause. Then Professor Cole gave her the directions. The central core was located at the very heart of Harmony Prime. It was a place designed for machines, not living beings. The gravity there had stabilized at a level that would crush any known species in the Galactic Union. The temperature was extreme. The atmosphere was toxic with gases that leaked from the generators. To Lucy, it sounded like a regular Tuesday on Earth. She walked through corridors that now buzzed with returning power. Emergency teams were starting to move through the station, helping trapped students and repairing damaged systems. Some of them saw her as she passed. They stared at the small human girl covered in blood and frost, walking steadily toward the center of the station. No one tried to stop her. No one could. The door to the central core required a manual override of its own. Lucy gripped the handle with her one good arm and pulled. The door slid open with a groan of protest. Inside, the air hit her like a wall. It was thick and hot and filled with particles that made her eyes water. She could feel the gravity pressing down on her the moment she stepped through the doorway. It was stronger than Earth gravity, but not by much. Her body complained but did not give out. She walked into the heart of the machine. The central core was a vast chamber filled with spinning mechanisms and glowing energy conduits. At the center stood the main control console, dark and silent. Lucy made her way toward it, each step a battle against exhaustion and pain. The restart sequence was simple. 3 switches in a specific order, then a button to confirm. Professor Cole talked her through it, his voice steady and calm, even as she struggled to keep herself upright. First switch. Her fingers slipped on the metal, slick with the sweat and blood that covered her hands. She gripped harder and pulled. Second switch. Easier now. Her body was finding reserves of strength she did not know she had. Third switch. The console lit up beneath her hands. Warning messages scrolled across the screen in a language she could not read. "Press the confirmation button," Professor Cole said. "Once you do, the generators will restart. Gravity will stabilize across the entire station." Lucy raised her hand and pressed the button. A deep hum filled the chamber. The spinning mechanisms around her changed their rhythm, slowing down before speeding up again with new purpose. The gravity beneath her feet shifted one final time, then settled into something steady and constant. Throughout Harmony Prime, the chaos ended. Students who had been floating helplessly drifted gently to the ground. Those who had been crushed felt the pressure release. Lights that had been flickering held firm. The station was saved. Lucy collapsed against the console and let her eyes close. She had nothing left. Every drop of energy, every ounce of strength, every bit of will she possessed had been spent. The Deathworld girl had given everything she had. She woke in the medical bay with Myra sitting beside her bed. Soft lights glowed overhead, and the gentle hum of healthy machines filled the air. Her arm was wrapped in a healing cast that tingled as it worked to repair the damage she had done to herself. "You have been asleep for 2 days," Myra said. Her gray face was creased with worry, but her eyes were bright with relief. "The doctor said your body went into recovery mode. Apparently, that is something humans can do. Just shut down and heal." Lucy tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain flared through her body, duller now, but still present. "Stay down," Myra said gently. "You need to rest. You saved everyone on this station. You have earned a break." The door to the medical bay slid open. Professor Cole floated in on his platform, followed by a stream of students. Lucy recognized many of them. The Corvellis she had helped during the crisis. The Methian, whose suit she had secured. Others who had watched her journey through the station communication system. And VETH. The tall Sylvan walked slowly to her bedside. His silver skin seemed duller than before, and his black eyes would not meet hers. He stood in silence for a long moment, and Lucy waited. "I owe you my life," Beth finally said. His voice was quiet and heavy with shame. "When the gravity spiked, I would have died. You caught me even though I had treated you with nothing but cruelty. You saved me even though I called you a savage and a monster." He lowered his head in a gesture Lucy recognized as the deepest form of apology in Sylvan culture. "I was wrong about you," he continued. "I was wrong about your species. I let my fear make me cruel, and I am sorry." Lucy looked at him for a long moment. She thought about all the weeks of isolation and mockery. She thought about the whispers and the jokes and the tampering with her translation device. She had every right to be angry. She had every right to refuse his apology. But that was not who she wanted to be. "I accept your apology," she said simply. "We all make mistakes. What matters is that we learn from them." Veth raised his head, and for the first time, Lucy saw something other than contempt in his eyes. She saw gratitude. She saw respect. She saw the beginning of something that might one day become friendship. Professor Cole floated forward. "The Academy is holding an assembly tomorrow to honor what you have done. The entire station knows your name now, Lucy Marsh. You are a hero." Lucy shook her head. "I am not a hero. I just did what needed to be done. That is exactly what makes you a hero." The days that followed were different from anything Lucy had experienced before. Students who had ignored her now smiled when they saw her. Students who had mocked her now stopped to talk. She was no longer the scary Deathworlder. She was Lucy, the girl who walked through impossible conditions to save their lives. She still wore the weighted bands when she was around the more fragile species. She still ate her strange cooked food in the cafeteria. But now, she did not eat alone. Mira sat beside her, and Ren the Corvalli joined them, and slowly, others began to fill the empty seats at their table. Even Veth came by sometimes. He was awkward and stiff, still learning how to treat her like an equal instead of an enemy. But he was trying, and that meant something. One evening, Lucy sat by the window in her quarters and looked out at the stars. Earth was out there somewhere, spinning in the darkness. Her parents were gone, but their dream had come true. She had made it to the stars. She had found a place among beings from 100 different worlds, and she had taught them something important along the way. Strength was not about being delicate or refined. It was not about having fragile bones or gentle evolution. Strength was about enduring. It was about getting up when everything tried to knock you down. It was about walking through fire and ice and crushing gravity because there were people who needed you. That was what it meant to come from a death world. And that was what Lucy Marsh would carry with her for the rest of her life. She smiled at the stars and let herself feel. For the first time since her parents died. Truly at peace. The Deathworld girl had found her place among the stars. And she was finally home. The maintenance tunnels were dark and cramped. Lucy crawled through them on her hands and knees, guided only by the dim glow of emergency lights and the voice of Professor Cole in her earpiece. The metal walls pressed close around her, and the air tasted stale and recycled. But she kept moving forward, 1 meter at a time. "The first section ahead has lost gravity control completely," Professor Cole said. "You will need to pull yourself through using the handholds on the walls. It is approximately 50 meters to the next stable zone." Lucy reached the end of the tunnel and pulled herself through a hatch into a larger corridor. The moment she crossed the threshold, her body lifted off the floor. She was floating now, weightless like she had seen astronauts float in training videos back on Earth. Most beings would have panicked. The students from the academy would have tumbled helplessly, unable to control their movements. But Lucy had trained for this. All humans who traveled in space received basic zero-gravity instruction. She knew how to move. She grabbed a handhold on the wall and pulled herself forward. Then another handhold and another. Her arms burned with effort as she hauled herself through the dark corridor. Without gravity, every movement sent her spinning slightly off course. She had to constantly correct herself. Using her grip strength to redirect her momentum. 50 meters felt like 50 kilometers. But she made it. The next section was worse. The gravity had not just failed here. It had reversed. Lucy stepped through the doorway and immediately fell upward. She slammed into what had been the ceiling, now serving as the floor. The impact knocked the breath out of her lungs. She lay there for a moment, staring down at what used to be beneath her feet. The floor was now above her head, covered with fallen debris and loose panels. Everything was upside down and wrong. "Lucy, are you injured?" Professor Cole's voice was tight with concern. "I am fine," she said, pushing herself up. "Just disoriented." "I need to walk on the ceiling now?" "Yes. The gravity reversal extends for approximately 30 meters. After that, you will reach a transition zone where gravity gradually returns to normal." Lucy started walking. It felt deeply unnatural to have the ceiling beneath her feet. Her brain kept telling her she was wrong, that she should be falling, that none of this made sense. But her body obeyed her commands. 1 foot in front of the other. Keep moving. Do not stop. She made it through the reverse section and into the transition zone. Here, the gravity shifted slowly from reverse to normal. Lucy felt herself being pulled in 2 directions at once. Her body stretched and twisted in ways that would have torn apart the fragile bones of a sylvan. It hurt badly, but she gritted her teeth and kept walking. The next obstacle was temperature. A coolant leak had flooded one of the corridors with super-chilled gas. Frost covered every surface, and the air itself seemed to crystallize as Lucy breathed. Her skin burned with cold the moment she stepped inside. Her fingers went numb within seconds. Her breath came out in thick white clouds that froze before they could dissipate. "How long is this section?" she asked through chattering teeth. 20 meters. "I am sorry, Lucy. There is no other path." 20 meters. She could run 20 meters on Earth in a few seconds. Here, in this frozen hell, it felt impossible. But she thought of the people in the medical bay. Students and staff gasping for air, counting down the minutes until they suffocated. She thought of Myra waiting for her to come back. She thought of her parents and the sacrifice they had made so she could be here. Lucy ran. The cold tried to stop her. It grabbed at her muscles and slowed her blood. It stabbed into her lungs with every breath. But humans were not strangers to cold. Her ancestors had survived ice ages. They had crossed frozen continents. They had built civilizations in places where the sun barely shone. She burst out the other side of the frozen corridor and collapsed against a wall. Her whole body shook violently as it tried to warm itself. Her fingers were blue, and she could not feel her toes. But she was alive. "You did it," Professor Cole said. His voice was filled with wonder. No other species could have survived that. "I am not done yet," Lucy said. The final obstacle before the engineering deck was a collapsed passage. Part of the ceiling had caved in during the storm, leaving a gap barely wide enough for Lucy to squeeze through. Jagged metal edges lined the opening like teeth. Lucy took off her weighted bands. She would need every bit of flexibility her body could give her. Then she started crawling into the gap. The metal scraped against her skin. Sharp edges caught her clothing and tore it. She felt warmth on her side and knew she was bleeding. But she kept pushing forward, twisting and turning her body through spaces that should have been too small for any person. Halfway through, she got stuck. A piece of wreckage had shifted, pressing down on her back and pinning her in place. She could not move forward. She could not move backward. The metal pressed harder against her spine. "Lucy, what is happening?" Professor Cole asked. "Your progress has stopped." "I am stuck," she admitted. Panic threatened to rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Panic would not help. Panic would only make things worse. She heard a voice through her communication device. Not Professor Cole this time. It was Mira. "Lucy, I am here. Talk to me. What do you need?" "I just need to think," Lucy said. She closed her eyes and focused on her breathing. In and out. Slow and steady. The way her father had taught her when she was young and afraid of thunderstorms. Her body relaxed slightly. The pressure on her back eased just a little. And that was enough. Lucy twisted her shoulders at an angle that would have dislocated them in most species. She exhaled completely, making her chest as small as possible. Then she pushed with her feet and pulled with her hands and squeezed herself through the gap like water flowing through a crack. She tumbled out the other side and lay on the floor, breathing hard. Blood seeped from cuts on her arms and sides. Her body ached everywhere. But she had made it. "I am through," she said. She heard cheering in the background. The students in the recreation wing had been listening. They had been following her journey through the speakers. And now they were celebrating because the Deathworld girl had done the impossible. Lucy stood up, on shaking legs, and looked at the door ahead of her. The engineering deck was just on the other side. The manual override that would save everyone was waiting for her. She walked to the door and placed her hand on the control panel. It slid open, revealing a room filled with machines and blinking lights. In the center stood a large lever marked with warning symbols in a dozen languages. The manual override. Lucy grabbed it with both hands and pulled. It did not move. She pulled harder. The lever groaned but stayed in place. Years of disuse had locked it in position. The mechanism was stuck, frozen by time and neglect. "Lucy, what is wrong?" Professor Cole asked. "The override is stuck. I cannot move it." Silence on the other end. Then the professor spoke again, his voice heavy with defeat. "The lever requires force far beyond what any known species can generate. It was designed for mechanical assistance that is no longer functioning." Lucy stared at the lever. She thought about the people who were running out of air. She thought about the students who had mocked her and feared her. She thought about the strength that had always made her different. She planted her feet firmly on the deck. She wrapped her hands around the lever until her knuckles turned white. She took a deep breath and called upon every bit of power her Deathworld body possessed. And then she pulled with everything she had. Something in her shoulder tore. White-hot pain exploded through her arm. But she did not let go. She kept pulling, kept straining, kept demanding that her body give her more than it had ever given before. The lever moved, slowly at first, then faster. Metal screamed as the mechanism released. Lights flickered across the engineering deck as systems, came back online. Lucy fell to her knees as the lever locked into its new position. Power surged through the station. Somewhere far away, the medical bay filled with fresh air. She had done it. The Deathworld girl had saved them all. The solar storm hit Harmony Prime like a hammer striking glass. The whole station shook as waves of energy crashed against its shields. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed. And somewhere deep in the heart of the station, something went terribly wrong. Lucy was in the recreation wing when it happened. She had been on her way back to her quarters when the first tremor knocked her off her feet. The gravity beneath her suddenly dropped to nothing, and she found herself floating in the middle of the corridor. Then, just as quickly, it slammed back down with twice the normal force. She hit the floor hard and felt the impact run through her bones. It hurt, but she had felt worse on Earth. She pushed herself up and looked around. The recreation wing was a large open space filled with game tables, relaxation pods, and viewing screens. Right now, it was filled with chaos. Students floated helplessly in the air or lay crumpled on the ground. The gravity was going crazy, shifting from nothing to crushing force without any pattern or warning. Emergency bulkheads had sealed the exits. They were trapped. Lucy counted 12 other students in the room with her. She recognized most of them from her classes. Veth was there, lying on the ground with his silver face twisted in pain. His long, fragile limbs were not meant to handle gravity like this. Even the lower setting was hurting him badly. Mira was there too. Her Pelian body handled the pressure better than the others, but she looked scared. She floated toward Lucy when the gravity dropped again. "The generators are failing," Myra said. "The storm must have damaged the power systems." Lucy grabbed a railing to keep herself steady. "Is anyone hurt badly?" "I do not know. Everyone is panicking." A Corvallis student screamed as the gravity spiked again. His forearms flailed as he hit the floor. Lucy watched the others struggle and realized something important. She was the only one who could still function. The gravity shifts that were crippling the other students felt like minor inconveniences to her. When it dropped to zero, she could control her movements in ways they could not. When it spiked to higher levels, her Deathworld body simply adjusted. This was nothing compared to what Earth demanded from its children. She had spent her whole life carrying weight that would crush these beings. Now that weight was her advantage. "Everyone listen to me," Lucy called out. Her voice was strong and calm. "I need you to stay where you are. Grab onto something solid and do not let go." The students stared at her with wide eyes. Some of them looked angry. They did not want to take orders from the Deathworlder, but they were too scared and too hurt to argue. Veth lifted his head from the floor. His black eyes locked onto Lucy with hatred. "What do you think you can do?" He spat. "You are just a primitive savage. You cannot help us." The gravity dropped again, and Veth floated upward against his will. He tried to grab a table, but his weakened arms could not hold on. He tumbled through the air like a leaf in the wind. Lucy pushed off the railing and flew toward him. She caught him around the waist and pulled him back down to the floor just as the gravity returned. They both hit the ground hard, but Lucy twisted her body to absorb most of the impact. Veth gasped in pain and shoved her away. "Do not touch me," he hissed. Lucy ignored him. She stood up and began moving through the room, helping students find stable positions. She moved a young Corvallis behind a heavy game table. She helped a Methian secure their containment suit to a wall anchor. She carried 2 smaller students to a corner where they could brace themselves together. The whole time, the gravity kept shifting, up and down, light and heavy. The station groaned around them like a dying animal. Myra worked beside her, doing what she could with her own pressure-adapted body. Together, they managed to get everyone into somewhat safe positions. But Lucy could see that it would not be enough. The shifts were getting worse. Some of the students were having trouble breathing. Others had started to pass out from the strain on their bodies. "We cannot stay here," Lucy said. "If the generators keep failing, the shifts will get stronger. They will kill everyone." Myra nodded grimly. "But what can we do? The bulkheads are sealed. We cannot get out." Before Lucy could answer, the communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice filled the room. "This is Professor Cole. I'm broadcasting from the command center. Can anyone hear me?" Lucy ran to a wall panel and pressed the response button. "Professor, this is Lucy Marsh. I can hear you. We are trapped in the recreation wing. 12 students are with me. Many of them are hurt." There was a pause. Then Professor Cole's voice returned, filled with relief. "Lucy, thank the stars. Listen carefully. The solar storm has damaged our primary systems. The gravity generators across the station are failing. We are working on a solution, but it will take time. How much time? I do not know. Hours, perhaps. Maybe more." Another pause. "There is a bigger problem. The medical bay has lost life support. Injured students and staff are trapped there without breathable air. They have maybe 30 minutes before the situation becomes fatal." Lucy's blood went cold. "Is there nothing you can do?" "The only way to restore power is to manually reset the system from the engineering deck. But the path is blocked by sections with no gravity control at all. Some areas have reversed gravity. Others have temperature drops or toxic leaks." Professor Cole's voice grew heavy. "No one on the station can survive that journey. Our bodies are not built for such conditions." Lucy looked at the students around her. She looked at Myra, whose eyes were wide with fear. She looked at Veth, who lay on the ground with his pride broken and his body failing. Then she looked at her own hands. Her strong, clumsy, Deathworld hands. "I can do it," she said. Silence on the other end. Then Professor Cole spoke again. "Lucy, you do not understand. The conditions in those sections would be lethal for any species in the Union." "I am not from the Union," Lucy replied. "I am from Earth. My planet has all of those conditions and worse. My body was built to survive them." She heard murmuring from the students behind her. They were listening. For the first time, they were truly listening to her. "Professor," Lucy continued, "you told me that humans are survivors. You told me that my species became something extraordinary because of what we endured. Let me prove you right." The longest silence yet. Then Professor Cole's voice came through, soft and filled with something that sounded like hope. "Very well, Lucy Marsh. I will guide you through the station. May the stars watch over you." Lucy turned to face the other students. They stared at her with expressions she had never seen before. Fear, yes, but also something else. Something that might have been the beginning of respect. "I am going to save those people in the medical bay," she said. "Myra, keep everyone calm until I get back." Myra nodded, her gray face pale but determined. "Be careful, Lucy. I will." Lucy walked to the emergency hatch in the floor. It led to the maintenance tunnels below, the only way past the sealed bulkheads. She pulled it open with her bare hands, ignoring the groaning metal. Before she climbed down, she looked back one more time. Veth was watching her. His black eyes held no hatred now, only shock and something that might have been shame. Lucy dropped into the darkness below and began her journey to save the station. The Deathworld girl was finally going to show them what she was made of. The weeks that followed were the hardest of Lucy's life. Every day brought new challenges, and every night she fell asleep wondering if she had made a terrible mistake coming here. The academy required her to wear special weighted bands around her wrists and ankles. These bands were designed to slow her down and remind her to be gentle. The doctors explained that her natural strength could accidentally hurt the other students. A simple handshake from Lucy could break the fragile bones of a Sylvan. A friendly pat on the back could send a Methian's containment suit into failure. She was dangerous without even trying to be. Lucy understood why the bands were necessary, but wearing them made her feel like a prisoner. They marked her as different from everyone else. They told the whole station that she could not be trusted to control herself. Eating was another struggle. The cafeteria served foods from dozens of worlds, but almost none of it was safe for humans. Most of the other species ate raw plants or drank nutrient liquids. When Lucy requested cooked meat and vegetables, the students at nearby tables stared at her in disgust. "She eats dead things," one of them whispered. "Cooked flesh. How barbaric." Lucy learned to eat quickly and leave before the comments could get worse. She found a small corner of the cafeteria where no one else sat, and that became her place. Every meal was the same. Sit alone, eat fast, and try not to make eye contact with anyone. Meth made sure her isolation was complete. He was popular among the students, and his words carried weight. He spread stories about Earth that made Lucy sound like a monster. He told them that humans hunted other creatures for sport. He told them that her planet was covered in violence and war. He told them that Deathworlders could not feel emotions the way civilized beings could. None of it was true, but that did not matter. The other students believed him because it was easier than trying to understand someone different. One day, Veth and his friends tampered with Lucy's translation device. They changed the settings so that everything she said came out wrong. When Professor Cole asked her a question in class, her answer sounded like nonsense. The whole room laughed at her, and she did not understand why until she checked her device later and found what they had done. She fixed the device and reported nothing. She had learned by now that complaining only made things worse. The only bright spot in those dark days was Myra. Myra was a Pelian, which meant she came from a world with crushing atmospheric pressure. Her body was short and round, covered in thick gray skin that could withstand forces that would flatten most other species. Like Lucy, she was different from the majority of students at the academy. Like Lucy, she knew what it felt like to be looked down upon. They met in the library during the third week of classes. Lucy was studying alone in a corner when Mira approached her table. "Is this seat taken?" Mira asked. Lucy looked up in surprise. No one had voluntarily sat near her since she arrived. "No," she said. "Please, sit down." Mira settled into the chair across from her. Her movements were careful and controlled, just like Lucy's. Both of them had learned to be gentle in a world that was not built for beings like them. "You are the Terran," Mira said. It was not a question. "I am Lucy." "I know. Everyone knows who you are." Myra paused. "I wanted to tell you that not everyone believes what Veth says about your people." Lucy felt something warm bloom in her chest. It was such a small thing, but after weeks of cruelty, it meant everything. "Thank you," she said. "That means a lot to me." From that day forward, Lucy and Myra became friends. They studied together in the library, ate together in the cafeteria, and walked together through the corridors. The other students still whispered and stared, but now Lucy did not have to face it alone. Myra explained many things about the academy that Lucy did not understand. She told her about the culture of the Galactic Union and how different species viewed strength and weakness. Most of the students here come from gentle worlds. Myra said one evening as they sat by a window overlooking the stars. Their planets have stable climates and low gravity. They evolved to be delicate and refined. To them, fragility is a sign of advancement. It means their species has moved beyond the need for physical strength. And species like ours? Lucy asked. We are seen as primitive. Our bodies are strong because our worlds demanded it. They think that makes us lesser, not greater. Myra's voice was calm, but Lucy could hear old pain beneath the surface. I have been at this academy for 2 years. I have learned to ignore what they say, but it still hurts sometimes. Lucy nodded. She understood exactly what Myra meant. Professor Cole began giving Lucy extra assignments. At first, she thought it was punishment for breaking the testing machine. But as the weeks passed, she realized he was trying to help her understand herself. "Your species is remarkable," he told her one day after class. "I have studied humans since your people first made contact with the Union. Do you know what makes you different from every other species in the galaxy?" Lucy shook her head. "Endurance," Professor Cole said. "Most species are specialized. They are fast or strong or intelligent or long-lived. But humans are generalists. You can run for hours without stopping. You can survive injuries that would kill other beings. You can adapt to almost any environment. Your bodies heal from damage that would be permanent for us." He floated closer to her, his voice dropping low. "The students mock you because they do not understand. They see your strength as a threat because they cannot imagine needing such strength. But I have seen the records of your homeworld. I know what your people have survived. Earthquakes, storms, predators, diseases. Your planet tried to kill you for millions of years, and instead of dying, your species became something extraordinary." Lucy did not know what to say. No one had ever described her people that way before. "Remember what you are," Professor Cole said. "Not a monster. A survivor." That night, Lucy lay in bed and thought about his words. She thought about Earth and all the challenges her ancestors had faced. She thought about her parents and how hard they had worked to give her this chance. She was not weak. She had never been weak. She was a child of a Deathworld, and that made her strong in ways these gentle beings could never understand. The next morning, an announcement echoed through the station. A solar storm was approaching, larger than any in recorded history. All students were ordered to remain in their quarters until it passed. Lucy looked out her window and saw the sun in the distance, burning bright and angry. Something was coming, and she could feel it in her bones. The gentle world of Harmony Prime was about to learn what it meant to face a real threat. And when that moment came, the Deathworld girl would be ready. The shuttle doors opened, and Lucy Marsh stepped onto Harmony Prime for the first time in her life. The space station stretched out before her like a city made of glass and light. Everywhere she looked, she saw beings from 100 different worlds walking through wide corridors and floating on gentle air currents. She had dreamed of this moment for years, and now it was finally real. Lucy was 16 years old, and the first human ever admitted to the Galactic Union Academy. She had won a scholarship that only one student from each planet could receive. Back on Earth, people had celebrated her achievement. They had called her a pioneer and a symbol of hope for humanity's place in the galaxy. But standing here now, surrounded by aliens who towered over her or floated past her without a second glance, Lucy felt very small and very alone. The gravity on the station felt strange to her body. Everything seemed lighter than it should be. When she took a step, she almost bounced off the floor. The station operated at what the aliens called standard gravity, which was less than half of what Lucy had grown up with on Earth. For the other students, this felt normal. For Lucy, it felt like walking on the moon. A tall figure approached her. The being was humanoid, but covered in silver skin that seemed to shimmer under the station lights. His limbs were long and thin, almost like branches on a tree. His eyes were large and completely black, and when he looked at Lucy, there was no warmth in them at all. "You are the Terran," he said. His voice came through her translation device, as cold and flat. "I am Veth of the Sylvan people. I will show you to your quarters." Lucy smiled and tried to be friendly. "Thank you. I am Lucy. It is nice to meet you." Veth did not smile back. He simply turned and began walking, expecting her to follow. Lucy grabbed her bag and hurried after him, still adjusting to the strange way her body moved in the low-gravity dot as they walked through the corridors. Other students stopped to stare at Lucy. She heard whispers through her translation device. Some of them made her stomach hurt. Is that the Deathworlder? Look how thick her limbs are. How does she even move? I heard their planet has crushing gravity. They live in a prison of their own weight. Primitive creatures. I do not understand why the Academy let one in. Lucy kept her eyes forward and tried to ignore the comments. She had known this would not be easy. Humans were new to the galactic community, and Earth had a reputation. The other species called it a death world because of its high gravity, extreme weather, and dangerous wildlife. To beings who had evolved on gentle planets with stable climates, Earth sounded like a nightmare. Veth stopped in front of a small door and pressed his hand against a panel. The door slid open to reveal a tiny room with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out into space. "This is where you will stay," Veth said. "Classes begin tomorrow. I suggest you try not to break anything with your clumsy movements." Before Lucy could respond, he was already walking away. She stood in the doorway for a moment, watching him go. Then she stepped inside and let the door close behind her. The room was cold and empty, but Lucy did not let herself feel sad. She set her bag on the bed and walked to the window. Outside, she could see stars stretching into forever. Somewhere out there, far away, was a small blue planet called Earth. Her parents had always wanted her to see the galaxy. They had worked their whole lives as engineers on space stations, saving money for her education, dreaming of the day she would walk among the stars. They had died 2 years ago, when a reactor failed on the station where they worked. Lucy had been on Earth at the time, staying with her grandmother. She had received the news on a quiet Tuesday morning, and nothing had ever been the same after that. This scholarship was their dream, not just hers. She would not let anyone take it from her. The next morning, Lucy woke up early and made her way to her first class. The corridors were busier now, filled with students of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs like her, while others floated or crawled or moved in ways she could not even describe. She tried to smile at the ones who looked at her, but most of them turned away. The classroom was large and circular, with seats arranged in rising tiers around a central platform. Lucy found an empty seat near the back and sat down carefully. She was still getting used to the gravity, and she did not want to make a scene. The professor floated into the room on a small platform. He was a Methian, which meant his body was mostly gas contained in a special suit. His name was Professor Cole, and his voice was soft and wise when he spoke. "Welcome to Galactic History," he said. "This semester, we will study how the Union came to be and what keeps it together. I expect all of you to participate and to respect each other's perspectives." His eyes, or what Lucy assumed were his eyes, seemed to pause on her for a moment. She could not tell what he was thinking. The class went well at first. Lucy listened carefully and took notes on her tablet. The other students answered questions and discussed events she had never heard of. She tried to follow along, but there was so much she did not know. Human history was just a tiny footnote in the grand story of the galaxy. Then came the physical assessment. Professor Cole explained that all students needed to complete a basic fitness evaluation. It was nothing serious, just a test of strength and coordination that helped the Academy understand each student's needs. One by one, the students stepped onto a platform and performed simple tasks while a machine measured their abilities. When it was Lucy's turn, she walked to the platform and tried to stay calm. The machine hummed as it scanned her body. A robotic arm extended toward her and asked her to grip it as hard as she could. Lucy squeezed Dot. There was a loud cracking sound, and the arm bent in the middle. The machine let out a warning alarm and shut itself down. Lucy stepped back in shock, her face turning red. The classroom erupted in laughter. Veth's voice was the loudest of all. "Look at the Deathworlder," he said. "She cannot even touch something without destroying it. This is what happens when you let primitives into our school." Lucy wanted to disappear. She wanted to run back to her room and never come out. But she forced herself to stand still and keep her head up. Professor Cole raised a hand and the laughter stopped. "That is enough," he said quietly. "The machine was not designed for her species. It is not her fault." But Lucy could see the way the other students looked at her. They were not just laughing at her. They were afraid of her. To them, she was not a person. She was a monster from a world of death, too strong and too strange to belong among civilized beings. As she walked back to her seat, she passed by a student she had not noticed before. He was a Corvelli, which meant he had 4 arms and skin the color of dark blue water. His name was Ren, and unlike the others, he did not laugh. He just watched her with something that might have been pity, or might have been understanding. Lucy sat down and stared at her hands. These hands that could break machines without trying. These hands that marked her as different. She thought of her parents and the dreams they had shared with her. She thought of Earth, spinning far away in the darkness of space. She would not give up. No matter what they said about her, no matter how they treated her, she would prove that she belonged here. The Deathworld girl had come to the stars, and she was not going anywhere.